Hello and welcome to the Vinyl Comedy Club. It's Sunday, it's around about 4 o'clock, and this week I am playing The Two Ronnies Volume 2, Me and Him. This is all a collection of sketches from the TV series that ran between 1971... Hang on, let me get this absolutely right. I've missed it, I've lost it. I'm sure I've got it somewhere. I think it was 1971 it started. Yes, and it ran until Christmas Day 1987. So after 1987, it was repackaged as a show called The 25 Years of the Two Ronnies, which is where I came into it actually. That's when I started watching it properly. So here we go, BBC Records and Tapes, as always. Before... side one. Put the right side on. Before I go too far into this, I'm going to play the opening news, because that's how they always used to start.
Hello, and it's good to be with you again, isn't it, Ronnie? Yes, it is, and in a packed programme tonight, we shall meet a scientist who crossed the theories of Sigmund Freud with those of Albert Einstein and got sex at the speed of light. And for the ladies, tonight we talk about rum barbers and what to wear if you've got them. But first, the news. Following the dispute with the Domestic Servants' Union at Buckingham Palace today, the Queen, a radiant figure in white silk gown and crimson robe, swept down the main staircase and through the hall. She then dusted the cloakroom and hoovered the lounge. In a dramatic incident in the House of Commons last night, Mr. Cyril Smith rose from the Liberal front bench and the rest of the party fell off the other end. And we've just heard that the price of British Rail coffee is to go up to 15p a slice. The powerful secret society known as the Lords of the Universe held their annual meeting last night, but their president, the Lord Chief Controller and Commander over all living things, was unable to be present. His wife wouldn't let him out. The next event was the annual general meeting of the Society for People Who Think They Are Methods of Transport. Its patrons are Mr. Robert Carr and Mr. Michael Foote. Mr. Foote arrived by car, Mr. Carr arrived by foot. Mr. Foote launched the proceedings by hitting a man who thinks he's an ocean liner over the head with a bottle of champagne. After which he hailed a woman who thinks she's a taxi, boarded her and left. The whole venture is being financed by someone who wishes to remain an omnibus. In the next sketch, I interview a lady who likes Nicholas Parsons, and I interview a parson who likes Nicholas ladies.
Oh, brilliant. I used to love that bit. Cyril Smith was a regular name drop on comedy shows purely because he was fat, and now we know that there was a bit more to him than that. He was a fat paedophile, but at the time you were able to make fat jokes about people. But yeah, apart from that, there's talking about stuff that hasn't aged. I mean, there are a lot of things. Well, there's a few things that the Two Ronnies... oh, hang on, Hell's Angels passing my house. There's a few things that the Two Ronnies wouldn't get away with now, but I think it's you can't really remember them by it when they've got so much work, so much intelligence in their writing as well is fantastic, and the wordplay and all that sort of thing. Especially the work mostly the work of Ronnie Barker himself, who that opening news item that we've just listened to is credited as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15... 17 writers put the opening late and closing news together, one of which was Gerald Wiley, of course, the pen name of Ronnie Barker, who contributed sketches in the Frost Report as Gerald Wiley because he wanted them to be judged on merit and to hide the fact that it was him trying to be a writer as well. In fact, to keep up the pretense, he occasionally used to read a script that he'd sent himself and say that it was rubbish and he wasn't going to do it. So, fantastic stuff. Yeah, the Two Ronnies actually met on the Frost Report. They weren't an actual double act, but they were presenting at the BAFTA Awards in 1970, and there was a technical fault, so they filled in for 11 minutes on stage, just riffing off each other, and Bill Cotton saw them, and that's how the Two Ronnies were born. They got given their own show from there. So yeah, we'll carry on. This next sketch is called Train of Events, and it also, apart from the Two Ronnies, it features Josephine Tewson and Norman Beaton as well, so let's listen to this. This sketch was written by Barry Cryer and Richard Vosborough.
Morning. Morning.
Morning.
Lovely day, isn't it? Beautiful day.
Beautiful day.
Beautiful day. Chilly but crisp. Frosty but nice.
Bracing and bright.
Nip in the ears. Good for the blood.
Gives you a glow.
Spring in your step. Makes you feel good.
Top of the world.
Walking on air. No full of beans.
I quite agree.
Been for your halls at the weekend.
Anywhere nice?
Cornwall for us. Same every year. Booked it all up. Bought Tootaloo. Bought Tootaloo.
Monty for me.
Going abroad. Fiddle-dee-dee. 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 Seen this bit here?
What does it say?
Says that a man, age 42, took a young girl back to his flat, gave her some drinks, then she passed out. When she woke up, she was in bed, in the Near East, and nothing else. Know what I mean? Man of the world, need I say more? Words of the wise.
Oh, you're a one.
Rubbish like that makes me feel sick. Who wants to read that sort of filth? Vicars and scouts, orgies and drugs, bosoms and boots, brazen young bits, flaunting their flesh, showing their thighs, all that they've got. World's in a mess, going to pot, sign of the times. God, I feel hot, think I'll strip off.
Have you gone mad?
I think he's snapped, gone round the twist. Give us a kiss. Get back, you fool. I'm with a kiss, leave her alone.
Keep out of this.
I knew you cared. I had a hunch. Come to my arm, mind my packed lunch.
No, not here.
Now is the time. I want you now.
George is wise.
I love your lips. I love your eyes. I love your nose.
Take me by force.
I love your... He's Terry Crews. I say, I'm most awfully sorry. I don't know what came over me.
It's quite all right. Say no more about it. Just one of those things. George.
Thank you so much. Wouldn't mind, but it's the same thing every day. One thing about these white people, they got a great sense of rhythm.
Norman Beaton playing to 1970s type there, unfortunately, but apart from that, a sketch I don't remember hearing. I don't remember that one at all, to be honest, but there are a lot of there's obviously a lot of stuff in there. So yeah, that was Train of Events, written by Barry Cryer, as I said. This next sketch is one of Ronnie Barker's solo sketches, and it is probably, if you had to pick a Ronnie Barker sketch from the Two Ronnies, apart from Four Candles, I mean one of his solo things, I think this would be the one that people remember the most. It's Mispronunciation. And the biggest surprise for me now is the fact that it wasn't written by Ronnie Barker / Gerald Wiley. It was actually written by David Nobbs, who was best remembered now for sitcom writing as well. But I always thought this was written by Barker himself. But, oh well, here we go.
I'm appealing to you tonight on behalf of those unfortunate people who have difficulty with worms. They just just can't say their worms correctly. Now, my name is Poctopodgusmish, and I'm an eminent drain sturgeon, and I'm squeaking to you tonight as the Secretary of the Loyal Society for the Pronunciation of Mispronunciation. Now, you know, pronunciation can be very embarrassing. If you go up to the vicar, mean to say, dower to you to hey, vicar, and it comes out as Yahoo-I oi day, vicar, you don't half feel a twit. Some people even use entirely the wrong worms, and this can be very unfastened all round. I remember twice a long time ago, an old angler exploded to me, I haven't fought a king all day. Of course he hadn't. You don't find many kings to fight on the River Itchen. He meant I haven't caught a dingle thing. He was using the wrong worms, and that's why he hadn't caught a thing. It was all extremely difficult for him. Now, what do you do if you suffer from this affection? Well, here's a piece of abuse. If it hurts you don't succeed, high five, fry again. Now, let me put that another way. Foam wasn't spilt in a tray. And don't put all your legs in one gasket. Why not join our society? Our members range from pukes to pus conductors. We even have one member who, not to mince words, is a trat. Or in other words, a prostitute. We have branches in London, Glasgow, Liverpool, and on the continent, if you're going continental. At Brussels, Amsterdam, Harris, Rope, Stickholm, Helsinki, and also. Our patrons include Her Majesty the Queen, Prince Phyllis, the Grime Minister, Mr. Grim Callaghan, and the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Scratch. Last time I appealed to you on the television, the response was, frankly, a great dish of ointment to me. In fact, we didn't get a single letter, so this time, please fry and do butter. Send us your honey, whether in marge or in small amounts, to this address. The Loyal Society for the Pretension of Mispronunciation, the Old Major Mouse, 32Z Hugh Street, Buckingham Tucks. I'll just repeal that. The Loyal Security for the Detention of Prostitution Station, the Old Bangor House, 286 Pye Street, Luckingham Ducks. Thank me, and from you, food bite to me all. Food bite and hanky for mischief.
God, how do you remember that? That must have taken quite a few goes at getting that right. But yeah, mispronunciation. I remember another mispronunciation sketch as well. I'm sure when he was in the supermarket and he bought, what was it? He bought Whoop and Wed and all that sort of thing, and the woman behind the counter tried to make fun of him, so I said Wobblers and walked away. I'm sure there must have been another one of these. Absolutely fantastic. Last week, actually, I did Morecambe and Wise, their radio show last week, and I said about how Eric and Ernie were theatre performers, and as such, their TV show looked slightly outdated when even in the old days, because it was a variety act, and they were a music hall act, a variety act, and all that sort of thing. The Two Ronnies were actually, although had stage work between them, I mean, experience between them. Ronnie Barker obviously was a serious actor at one point, and in fact all the way through his career. And Ronnie Corbett was what we now call a stand-up comedian. I don't think that term was. I think he was just a comic then, but. They were brought together on television, so they knew the technique of television rather than playing to the audience. They were playing to the camera, and I think that shows in a lot of their work. You know, although there were people in the audience, they weren't technically playing to them. They were playing to, 2 people or 5 people or whatever that was sat on the other side of the camera at home, and that's who they were playing to. And I think that shows in a lot of their work. Benny Hill was actually the pioneer of that. I know he's not remembered for the right reasons these days, but in the early days of television, he was one of the first people to quit the stage for television, and he experimented with techniques. If you look for Benny Hill's jukebox jury sketch on YouTube, if you've not seen that, he's using split screen, and you see him playing all four members of the panel at the same time, and things like that were never seen before on television. And it's people like that that paved the way, and you know, the Frost Report and all that sort of thing, which was catered for television. That mean that we've got things now like panel shows and things which are for you rather than for them, you know. So as a technique, it's actually something that I don't think a lot of people thought about, but obviously they do. And you know, like the opening news sketch and things like that, they were doing it down the camera. They weren't doing it out here for people, with the exception of the armchair monologue, which I think there is one on here. There must be. I don't think there is. With the armchair monologue was done to the studio audience with an eye on the camera, rather than to the camera with an eye on the audience, which is interesting. But obviously that was a slightly different setup. But next up is a double track, Put Me Down for Two, and then Late News.
Well, I've seen him.
Yeah, very probably.
I've seen the doctor about my problem.
Suppose he told you to take 2 aspirins and call him in the morning if you weren't feeling any better, eh?
He says the cure for my problem is love.
Well, that's a cure for everybody's problem. I mean, don't need a doctor to tell you that.
He says I need to have love at least 7 times a week.
How many?
7, at least.
Well, put me down for 2.
We're going straight into the late news.
Now, here is the late news. After a series of crimes in the Glasgow area, Chief Inspector McTavish has announced that he's looking for a man with one eye. If he doesn't find him, he's going to use both eyes.
And the perfect crime was committed last night when thieves broke into Scotland Yard and stole all the toilets. Police say they've absolutely nothing to go on.
Anybody watching this, and myself included, saw that joke coming an absolute mile off, but it is still so funny. I don't know why. Things like that always appeal to me. I really do. If you watch my Instagram videos, Dog Walk Comedy, that's basically what that is. It's just silly old gags, and I just love it. I really do.
Mr. Ernest Quigley, the winner of the sponsored hairdressing marathon, who has had his hair permed and set non-stop for 73 hours, was today described as completely and utterly lacquered.
It has been revealed in a report laid before the International Olympic Committee that at the last Olympic Games, several athletes took steroids. The Russian Anna Volga took anaroids. Anthony Armstrong-Jones took Polaroids. And David Hemery didn't take anything.
Oh God, I love these. The beginning, and these are always at the beginning and the end of the TV show, and it was the only time you saw Ronnie Barker as Ronnie Barker as well, which was something that he wasn't comfortable being himself because he was an actor, not a comedian as such, and that's the bit that he was himself. And the good night from me, good night from him. The him is actually that person you've seen. It's not Ronnie Corbett. It's the person you've seen on TV, and I find it quite sad that he had that shyness. Although the fact that he was able to be all these characters, like the mispronunciation guy. I mean, dead serious at the camera doing a bit. I mean, those were his highlights really for me. I just find he was a natural at delivering to the camera, but he didn't really like doing it. And even in things like Porridge and Open All Hours, he was such a wit that it's a shame that I hope he knew. I hope he knew that people found him a funny man, and I hope he knew that people saw him as a comedian, maybe before an actor and a writer, because that's how we saw him on TV. It'd be a shame if he didn't think of himself like that, because he was just a genius. He really was. All right, this is Cheers. This sketch is called Cheers. Sorry, I forgot to introduce it.
To enroll for one of your night classes, please.
Yes. Now, what sort of course are you thinking of taking?
Poisoning.
Pardon?
Poisoning. I want to learn how to poison things.
Well, I don't think we've got a poisoning course going at the moment.
Oh, well, chemistry then.
Chemistry, yes.
Yes, chemistry with access to the poison cupboard.
Now, I'm afraid our chemistry course doesn't run as far as the poison cupboard. What about something else? What about something like metal work?
Oh, would that include knife sharpening?
Might well.
And axe grinding?
No, I know. I suggest you keep away from that sort of thing.
Why?
Well, it's not normal, you know.
Not normal? I'm perfectly normal. I'm a perfectly normal human being who just wants to learn how to sharpen a knife, that's all. So that its blade glints in the sunlight as I smash it down. Whenever I smash it down on a pork chop or something.
No, what about first aid?
Oh, how to remove bloodstains from clothing?
No. What about knots and hitches?
Slip knots?
No, needlework then.
Hypodermic needlework?
Why not learn an instrument?
Yes, a blunt instrument.
No, why do you want to learn all these dreadful things?
I'm writing a book on it.
A book?
Yes. It's called How to Murder the Woman at 49 Ashley Gardens and Other Stories.
49 Ashley Gardens?
Yes, you know it.
I know the road. Yes.
Well, I live at 49 Ashley Gardens, and my wife is being unfaithful to me.
Really?
Yes. Little chap with glasses.
Oh. What's that got to do with me?
Nothing at all. It's just that I want to learn about it to write a book, you see.
Of course.
And you're the person who can tell me about night classes.
Of course, I was forgetting. Why was I the person who tells you about night classes?
Yes, quite.
What I do in my own time is my own private affair.
Oh, yes. Mind you, my wife's affairs are far from private.
Really?
My wife's affairs are public. She's ultra-friendly.
What?
Every man in the road.
What?
And 2 in the crescent. And 4 up the avenue.
The skinny, ginger-haired little tart.
An accurate description.
Look, sir, why don't you take a nice weekend off? Go to Brighton, something bracing like that.
Do you think, sir?
Yes, and when you come back on Monday, perhaps you'll have something to write a book about.
Oh, all right, then. I'll go to Brighton. All right.
Indeed. See you on Monday.
See you Monday, then.
Yes, indeed.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Hello, Daphne. You've just been in, yes. Yes. I've managed to persuade him to go to Brighton for the weekend. So I'll see you tonight, my dearest. Hello, is that outdoor activities? It's Frobisher here. Have you a gardening course going at the moment? It's only I wanted to learn how to dig a big hole, 6 foot deep, by 38, 24, 36.
Right, that sketch was actually called Night Night, not Cheers. Sorry, I read it wrong. This next sketch is called Night Night. And Night Night and this next sketch, Cheers, were both written by Gerald Wiley, who, as I said, was the secret pen name of Ronnie Barker. And that was a subject of rumour. On the Frost Report, it was people were speculating on who Gerald Wiley actually was. And even names like Harold Pinter and Noel Coward were suggested that it might be them. But eventually he came. But what I like about the fact that he revealed himself to, I don't know whether that was public or whether that was just an industry revelation at the time. But he carried on writing as Gerald Wiley, and again, it must have been a confidence thing as well. You know, just to be to have his writing head on. He had to be Gerald Wiley, which it worked for him absolutely. This next sketch is Ronnie Barker and Michael Redfern performing Cheers.
Right, I think, look, you all go out on the terrace. I'll get the waiter to bring the drinks out, shall I? That's fine.
Just remembered what sketch this is.
Good evening. What would you like? Well, to start with, I'll have a large gin tonic. Sir? Very large. Ice and lemon, sir? Yeah, if there's room in the glass, yes. And what else, sir? Well, as a matter of fact, I just met these people. See, I don't know them at all. They're all friends of my wife, you see. So now let's see. The lady in the sack dress wants an enormous brandy. The young man with a flat head wants a rum and coke. Andy, he's the tall chap, he's Scottish, he wants a pink gin with lemon. The girl with the boobs wants a white lady. My wife will have a Scotch on the rocks. The woman with the bare arms behind her, she will have half a bottle of the house wine. And the old man with the rather shifty eyes, he'll have a rough cider. But before that, I'll have another gin and tonic.
Yes, sir.
Oh, beautiful. So, right, so that's an enormous brandy, rum and coke, a pink gin, white Scotch, a wine, a cider, and a lemon on the rocks.
Pardon, sir?
The lady in the sack dress, a brandy. The flat head, a rum and coke, a Scotsman behind, a white gin. The lady with the pink boobs, a cider. Just a minute, just a minute. You were having a sit down. Yes, right. Thank you, that's it. Yes, I thought that was it, yes. Is that mine?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Say it again, please.
Certainly, sir.
Now, I've got it this time. It's one brandy, one rum and lemon, a pink thing, a white lady with double boobs, rough rocks, wine on the house, and a big bottle.
Pardon, sir?
Don't worry, it's all under control. Look, the lady in the sack wants a tall Scotch. The bare lady with the behind wants a rum and coke. My wife will have an old man on the rocks. The girl with the shifty boobs wants a big bottle of brandy on the house. The young man with the flat wife wants enormous wine. The white lady with the pink... just a minute. Now, wait a minute. You ordered the pink wine. Yes, I thought that was it. Yes. Is that mine?
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you. Now, are you listening? It's simple. Simple. I'll have a gin and tonic.
I've got one ready for you.
Oh, thank you. Either one of these, is it?
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you. Why don't you have a beer?
No, thank you, sir.
Right, now, I do exactly what I'm doing. All right? Here goes. The randy girl with a big bottle wants a rough Scotch. Rough Scotsman. The tall lemon wants a double shifty on the rocks. The bare woman with the boobs like the side of a house wants a pink old man. The enormous chap with the flat gin wants my wife with the beer behind. And the white lady wants a sack of coke. It's simple enough. What are you having?
Look, sir, I'm...
Look, ready? Now, wait a minute. Look, this is it, right? Ready? Forget all previous orders. Just give me a sack of coke, 2 large rocks, 2 pink boobs, and a enormous lemon and a large bare lady of the house.
Right, sir. Glad we finally got that sorted out.
Yes, so am I, yes.
1 sack of coke,
1 sack of coke,
2 large rocks,
2 large rocks,
1 pair of pink
one
boobs, an enormous lemon,
enormous lemon,
and a large bare lady on the house.
Carry that, right, look, I'll take the lemon, you take the rocks, will you? Come on, right, now, who ordered the pink boobs?
Not surprisingly, written by Ronnie Barker again. His talent with words was it was just remarkable. It really was. I've actually got a book somewhere of all the stuff that he wrote, and it is how you can think of things like that is just magical. It really is. Anyway, next up, this one was written by Terry Jones and Michael Palin. So let's see this one. This is Cricket Commentators.
And now, over to the Oval for the cricket.
Thank you very much. Well, in fact, we're not at the Oval, as you can see, because unfortunately bad light closed play early and we popped round here to the El Mambo restaurant for a quick bite. And I must say, the El Mambo is as full tonight as I've ever seen it. Richie, have you ever seen the El Mambo quite as full as this?
No, I don't think I have. It certainly is very full here tonight. I think probably because there are so many people here. I think that would account for it. I should think there must be almost upwards of nearly 30 people here now.
And you, Peter?
Yes, I certainly think that is so. Well, I see the waiter coming towards us now from the cocktail bar end. Moving in between the tables with that slow, almost lolloping walk of his. And as he comes in towards our table, over to you, John.
Yes, here's a really wonderful example of a very accurate slow waiter. Coming here with this lovely lazy action, and he's about to hand me the menu. You'll notice he's bending as he does so, and he hands me, thank you very much indeed. Richie, did you notice, by the way, that he happens to be a left-hander? Did you know?
Yes, I did notice that, John. In fact, yes, I thought he was going to transfer to his right, but he hung on to his left, and I think that must be fairly uncommon.
Yes. Perhaps John Hammond can tell us exactly how many left-handed waiters there are in this part of London. And while John's working that out, perhaps we can have a little look at the menu here. There we are.
Yes, well, there it is. I see the ice cream has just gone up. Yeah, I notice also that the minestrone and the chicken risotto are back on the menu again. What do you make of that, Joel?
Well, I'm very pleased to see that minestrone back on there. You know, it's the sort of thing this meal really needed. I'm pleased they've dropped the suet pudding. I'm glad to see that. And I'm frankly quite amazed to see that chicken risotto getting a second chance.
Richie, you had experience of the chicken risotto in Australia last year. What do you think of it then?
Well, Peter, I think it's very easy to underestimate the risotto. I think the ingredients are all there. You could fare a lot worse. Of course, there is the question of the runs to be considered.
I'm very pleased indeed to see that they've decided to drop the fried haddock. Apparently that was found to be off colour late last night, I do.
Yes, of course, if you want something solid, you can't do better than the roast beef with the full weight of Yorkshire behind it.
Yes, all right. Well, personally, there you are. I think I shall go for the minestrone and the chicken risotto with a follow-on.
Well, I'm afraid I'm going to have to stop you there, Peter, because in fact Richie has just put his finger right in the mustard there.
Yes, I certainly did there, John. I was just reaching out there to get the olives and I stuck my thumb in the mustard.
Perhaps we could see that again. Do you think we could see that? There we are now. The hand is coming. Going for the olives and right into the mustard. Turn off the table. Well, in fact, we're back live now. We're in fact back live, and Joss Hammond has just told me that apparently there are 28 left-handed waiters in this part of London, and 16 of those have beards.
Now, I have to stop you there, John. I have, in fact, now knocked over a glass of beer.
You knocked it right over, did you,
Yes,
Richie?
I certainly did, John. I just reached down, put my hand down on the table, and the whole thing... Now the table is broken. The whole side of it's collapsed, I'm afraid.
Well, this is something I'm sure none of us have envisaged. The complete and total collapse of the side. It's just all just happening. What about this, Peter?
Well, no, that certainly is an extraordinary spell for Richie. I mean, in 30 seconds, he's put his thumb right in the mustard, he knocked over his own beer and smashed the table.
Yes, perhaps Joss Hammond can tell us when this last happened at the El Mambo.
If indeed it ever has.
If indeed it ever has, you're quite... Well, now the manager is having a word with Richie now, and I think we're being asked to leave.
Yes, I think we are being asked.
Yes, we are being asked to leave. Yes, I'm sure we are.
Yes.
Well, that is the meal. Meal is over. We are now being asked to leave. The manager has now got me by the coat, and Joss Hammond tells me the manager is also a left-hander.
There are two things there. First of all, you can tell that was written by Python writers and performers as well. That could have been in Flying Circus, that sketch. Which is funny. A weird thing about the Two Ronnies is the fact that on the surface they are a very broad, very family-friendly light entertainment show. But some of their work was just bizarre, and it did fit. I mean, I know they worked, you know, the Frost Report and things like that, everything sort of mingled in together and they came out of one side of it. But the fact that they've got that influence of Monty Python as well, and they worked with Future Goodies and you know, Pythons as well and all that sort of thing, it's remarkable how maybe that's why their material survived better than other people's and stuff like that, because it had slightly modern interjections as well. Not all of their material, unfortunately, is playable now, but it's interesting how different writing styles and different influences can keep a program as fresh as this. 40 odd years later, remarkable. Anyway, and now we're going into, and also. The sport was cancelled, so they were commentated on being in a restaurant. At the beginning of lockdown, I can't remember the guy's name, and this shows how things keep coming back. At the beginning of lockdown, there was a sports commentator who was putting videos on YouTube and stuff of him commentating on his dogs. So that occurred to me while this was happening. It's how things turn around and all that sort of thing is it's remarkable, I find. Accidentally topical.
Here are two items of late news. We've just heard that British Leyland strikers have been fitting silencers to motor horns, and now the cars don't give a hoot either.
And we've heard from a very disappointed guest at the Charles Dickens Society's annual nudist weekend. He had great expectations, but it was a very bleak house, and everybody laughed at his little Dorrit.
Oh, that's it. Late news. So that's the end of side one of The Two Ronnies. Still so funny as well. Still, I don't know why these don't get repeats on TV still. You know, I don't know why the BBC, especially in the last couple of months where we've ran out of TV shows, so they've been putting any old rubbish on. Why didn't they put The Two Ronnies on? Didn't think of that, and I don't think any of the sort of like Gold and Yesterday and all that sort of thing. I don't think they've been putting them on either, which is a big shame because it's for everybody, isn't it? It's all the family can listen to this, and yet we're happy to forget about it somehow.
Good evening, it's nice to be with you again, isn't it, Ronnie?
Yes, it is. And in a packed program tonight, we shall be talking to a Texas man who made a fortune selling smokeless fuel to Red Indian couples who aren't speaking to each other.
And we'll be talking to an insecticide maker who's just produced an aphrodisiac for flies. It doesn't kill them, but it lets you swat 2 of them at a time.
And then we shall talk to a showbiz chef who crossed Raquel Welch with a packet of Bisto and got gravy with very big lumps.
And also to a man who crossed Basil Brush with a cenopod and got a quick foxtrot.
And then we shall interview a man whose parents were a clairvoyant and a contortionist. And as a result, he can foresee his own end.
First, the news. A man who threw his mother-in-law into the crocodile pool at London Zoo has been prosecuted by the RSPCA.
And there was a disturbance at Hampton Court Maze this afternoon. A party of Irish trippers panicked when they couldn't find their way in.
I'm sorry, but I'm still going to laugh at that.
And the world's most stupid man, Mr. Brodnick Godbolt, was today found not guilty of trying to gas his wife by throwing her into the North Sea.
In the sketch that follows, Ronnie Corbett was to have starred in his own version of Jaws, but unfortunately, the goldfish died.
Just in that, you had a mention of Raquel Welch was another one who was mentioned quite a lot in those days, and Ronnie Corbett being small. Was he really that small? A joke about doing Jaws with a goldfish was funny, but yeah, of course it was, even though he wasn't. But I know there's a few things in there, but even so, this next sketch, All in a Day's Wonk, was written again by Gerald Wiley. What is a big shame, seeing as I'm doing a Two Ronnies album, when I got to the end of the first half, it would have been brilliant if I could have gone, and now Elaine Page, and brought Elaine Page in, but I'm sure she wasn't on as often as people seem to remember.
Good morning, Mr. Sorbet.
Good morning, Mr. Basker. Hot are you this morning? Wool, I trust?
Oh, phone absolutely bone. I've got a lot of wonk to do this morning.
So have I. I've got an enormous pole in my in tray.
Yes. Anything in the newspaper?
What?
The new paper? Anything in the newspaper?
Not a log, not a log.
No.
It's all body dicks these days, you know. There's a little bit in here about the TV play last night. Did you see it?
No, we had some friends over for a maul.
Quite good, rather spicy. Girl running around in nothing but a pair of knickers. I see Mrs. Tighthouse has complained again.
She needs a swift kick up the arm.
Quite, I mean, it's not as if she removed her knockers. I mean, that would have been different.
Yes, absolutely. Talking of that, have you seen Mrs. Wiggins this morning?
No, she's late again as usual. Do you know, she's been laid every day this week.
Well, I'll soon put a slop to that. I'll give her a weed's notice.
Oh, don't do that.
Why not?
Well, I'd hate to see her tow from here.
Why?
Well, if you must know, Mrs. Higgins and I are in Hove.
Love? You and Mrs. Friggins?
Yes, but don't tell anyone, it's a secret. She doesn't want anybody to know about it. Now, is that clear?
What, not even Moo?
Not even you.
All right. It's OF by me. Well, Weddle. You crafty old see-and-so.
Oh, I've been so unhappy, you know.
Oh.
Well, she's all I ever wanted in a Roman. Charming, rude-looking, and a wonderful disposition.
Why are you so unhacky? Why are you frying? Why don't you just get matted?
Well, she's already married.
Oh, a Jewish chap.
Yes. The situation is absolutely hopeless. I should just have to put a stop to it. I mean, over these past few months, it's been so difficult for me to hide my foolings.
Oh. Please, you're giving me indigestion as it is. Where are my piles? Oh, yes. Now, come along, blow your note. That's it. Oh, morning, Miss Biggins.
Morning. Morning, Rennie. Morning, Ronnie.
Why are you late? You know you're supposed to be here by 9 o'clock.
Well, I'm very sorry. I would have been here on the bot, but I had to see the dictator.
The doctor?
You're not feeling all, are you?
I never felt better in my loaf. He's just told me I'm going to have a boobie.
What?
It's true. I'm going to be a tummy.
Congratulations, my bear. Go in there and put your fees up. You must bake it easy for a while, you know.
Oh, thank you. You're very kind.
Well, that's that, isn't it, eh? That's the end of your little affair. Now you'll have to put a slop to it, won't you, eh? Which means, my dear chip, that all your troubles are over.
Well, not really. I mean, her husband's a sailor. He might take me out to sea and throw me overboard.
Why should he do that?
Because of the child. He hasn't been home for 2 years.
What are you trying to tell me?
Do I have to spell it out for you? I'm going to be a bather.
18.5 million viewers a week at the height of their run, which was bolstered in 1978 when Morecambe and Wise left the BBC as well. So they became the flagship double act, and they were all the eggs in the Christmas Day basket as well. Which I remember the last Christmas special they did, as I said before, was 1987, which gets shown maybe only on Gold or something, but it does get shown around Christmas, and it's got a brilliant Pinocchio sketch in it. That's it, all I remember from it. But that was their last Christmas special before Ronnie Barker retired. This next sketch is another. I think it's another Wiley, and it might have been Barbara Dixon I was talking about, not Elaine Page. They're the same thing. This is Sex Equality, And I think this is the sketch where Ronnie Barker was wearing 2 costumes in one. It might have been that one.
Good evening. I'm from the Ministry of Sex Equality. Now, I'm here tonight to explain the situation man to man. Or as we have to say now, person to person. My name is Mr. Stroke Mrs. Barker. But I don't advise any of you to try it. Stroke Mrs. Barker. Now, due to this new law, no one is allowed to be called male or female, man or woman. Now, this has already caused a great deal of argument in Parliament, so they're all going for a parliamentary conference at Manchester, or as we now say, Personchester. They'll all stay in a nudist colony and air their differences. Members only, of course. But how does this affect you? Well, is it easy to become unsexed? Well, it can be done. And I represent the proof. At least half of me does. The other half represents the poof. Now, the first thing we have to realize is that for too long, women have been beneath men. Not only in the home, but in the office as well. And there are many ways in which we can change that. Vertical desktops, for a start. Now, the main area of change, of course, will be in the language. The man in the street will become the person in the street. Whoever you are, whether man or woman, you will be the person in the street. Incidentally, when I was in the street the other day, I nearly fell down a person hole. So you go. Now, certain professions will have their names changed, from the chairperson of a large company right down to the humble dust person. Not to be confused, of course, with the famous film star Dustin Hoffperson. Now, speaking of films, there will be special feature films made showing the equality of the sexes, already in production. A new musical called 7 Persons for 7 Other Persons, starring Paul Newperson with choreography by Robert Helpperson, and music by Person Tavani and his orchestra. Dress. Dress, of course, you won't be able to expect. You won't be expected to dress like this. This sort of costume is much too expensive. Half a knicker certainly doesn't cover it. Each person can, of course, choose what to wear, provided it includes the customary shirt, bra, underpants, and handbag. Shoes can be black or brown, according to individual taste. I myself find that black shoes taste rather better than brown ones. Jobs, too, will be entirely sexless, with 1 or 2 obvious exceptions. What are they, you may ask? You may ask, but I'm not telling you on this program. But here is a clue. They have jam on them and appear at tea time. Now, a job must be open to either a what's it or a who's it. That is, of either sex. For instance...
Yeah, it is that one. I've just shown you, look. A spokesperson as well. He's wearing half a dress and a blonde wig and a very business suit as well. So, yeah, I thought that was right. I had to check.
Not be allowed. Now, I have one here in the local paper, and it says, if I can find it, oh yes, bar staff required for West Country pub, male or female, must have big boobs. Now, of course, that won't be passed by the ministry at all. What they should have said was, bar staff required, male or female, must be attractive in the Bristol area. That would have got past. A recent idea by the ministry to avoid confusion is to call a man a doings and a woman a thingy. This offends no one and makes conversation clearer. Thus, we instantly recognise the book called Little Thingies, or the musical called My Fair Thingy, or the play by George Bernard Shaw called Doings and Super Doings. There are times, however, when it sounds better to stick to the word person. The person in the street is still better than the doings in the street. That's something to look out for and steer clear of. Finally, don't let this new law alter your life. After all, what's in a name, as the great John Fatpimple once remarked? I know that whatever we're called, my own dear thingy and myself will carry on as usual, wearing each other's clothes. And that however we, the people, are thought of by the ministry, tonight, all over Britain, all those thingies and doings will be together in front of the fire as usual. Good night.
That is remarkably of now, isn't it? That's remarkably current. I didn't even know what I was going to say then. I'm pretty sure a lot of those laws exist now. They should have repeated that sketch at the beginning of maybe 2 years ago, so that people would. Because so many people get offended by things nowadays. That is remarkably current as a sketch, I think, anyway. time for the news.
And now here is the late news. We've just heard that in the English Channel, a ship carrying red paint has collided with a ship carrying purple paint. It is believed both crews have been marooned. News from the courts. A sheikh from Abu Dhabi appeared in Kuwait divorce court today. His harem claimed infidelity and cited the Dagenham Girl Pipers. And a man was prosecuted for cruelty by the RSPCA. He bought a homing pigeon and then moved house. A member of the Buckingham Palace staff who was accused of stealing 10 large cans of beans, 7 pounds of radishes, and 3 jars of pickled onions has been given a royal pardon. Our next sketch will feature an artistic lady nudist who will do lightning pen and ink sketches, as long as she doesn't drop her fountain pen and ink-a-dink-a-doo.
Oh, God.
My Secret by Pam Ayres. I'm on the telly all the time with poems what I wrote, suppressing giggles in me cheek and chuckles in me throat. But I'm now going to surprise you. Forgive me if I brag about my well-kept secret. I'm Benny Hill in drag.
They didn't really go in for impressions, the Two Ronnies, apart from occasionally doing dressing up as bands and pop stars and things. But that sounded a lot like Pam Ayres, and the punchline, it sounded a lot like Benny Hill as well. That was Wiley as well. And we're going to go into The Castaway. Off the top of my head, I don't know the titles of the sketches all the time. The Castaway, this was written by Spike Mullins.
This evening, I'd like, if I may, to tell you a story about a chap who was cast ashore.
Oh, it's
on
an
a
armchair
desert
job.
island. Now, oh, by the way, this is not the one about the 2 Irishmen on a desert island, you know, who found a lifeboat and broke it up to make a raft. No, it's not that one. I'm glad it's not that one, really, because, you know, that's a bit ridiculous. No, this is actually about a chap who was a passenger on a flight to New York. And when they started the film, he'd seen it before on the telly, you know, and he was so disgusted he got up and walked out. As soon as he lands in the water, he realizes what he's done, you see. He gets very depressed. Bless my soul, he said. And help. But the people in the airplane, they can't hear it, you see. Well, they're all watching Doris Day and drinking their duty-frees and shouting, "Shut that door." So there he is, being tossed about by the waves. And, oh, sorry, that reminds me. A little wave, if I may, to my mum and dad. No, I like that, because actually my mother, you know, still thinks of me as a wee baby. Well, let's face it, you know, I was a wee baby. I spent the first 2 years of my life on a charm bracelet. Now, that's not exactly true, but if I told you the truth, you'd never believe me. Anyway, and she's very proud of me. Just as I was leaving tonight, she looked at me. Her face was radiant and her eyes were shining. I don't know what she's taking, but I wish I could get something. And she turned to my dad, who was sitting there sewing a button on his hat. Well, he's had a lot of worry lately. And she said, "Ty, Ty." She calls him Ty, you know, short for Titanic, because she thinks he's a bit of a disaster. She said, Ty, she said, "Can this be the same little boy who sang 'It's my mother's birthday today' and won the talent contest at the old Holborn Empire all those years ago?" And he said, "No, that was Max Bygrave." But I digress. And our hero, you remember, the chap who walked out on Doris Day, well, he has found himself cast ashore on this desert island, you see. 15 years later, he's sitting on the beach, all alone. Nothing but sand and the sea
I've just realised what this joke
Sounds
is
like a
now.
summer season at Cleethorpes, actually. But it makes you wonder what he lived on for 15 years. Credit, I suppose, like the rest of us. So one day, he's sitting there on the beach with nothing but his roughly hewn bucket and spade and his 8 gramophone records. Waiting for the tide to come in and fill his little moat. Suddenly, out of the sea, there appeared an apparition. And he was very, very frightened as it flapped its way up the beach towards him, you know. My God, he said, it's Ronnie Corbett's wife. No, he didn't. No, he didn't say that at all. I just put that in. I really must stop saying nasty things about my wife, you know. And, I mean, especially as today is our anniversary, I mustn't, you know. It's just 12 years ago today when she said, I do. Certainly surprised me because I didn't think she did. Anyway, when it gets nearer, I'm very glad she did. Anyway, when it gets nearer, not like that. And when it gets nearer, the apparition turns out to be a beautiful girl wearing a wetsuit, snorkel, and flippers. Well, she removes the snorkel and she says, "Hello," she says. "What are you doing here?" He said, "Well, actually, I am a castaway." He got very, very humble about that. He said, "I am a castaway on this desert island." And she said, "Oh, you poor man. Well, I never. Fancy that." Dog my cats. She didn't say that 4 times, actually, but I like saying, Dog my cats, you poor man. How long is it since you had a cigarette? He said, "Well, actually, it's about 15 years. And I'm seriously thinking of giving it up. Starting tomorrow." Whereupon she unzips a pocket of a wetsuit. She's a very big girl. Anyway. And produced a packet of cigarettes. He was overwhelmed. "I'm overwhelmed," he said. There you are, I told you he was overwhelmed. And she said, "Buster, you have seen nothing yet. The best is yet to come," she said. "How long since you have a drinky winky?" Well, she unzips the other pocket, see? Produces a flask. You're making up your own story. He produces a flask of his favourite whiskey. A tear sprung to his eye. Did I tell you he only had one eye? Doesn't matter, you know. Well, it matters to him, but it doesn't matter. This is marvellous, he said. "I haven't had a drink or a cigarette in 15 years. Then she started slowly to unzip the front of a wetsuit. She says, "How long is it since you played around?" He said, "Good heavens, don't tell me you've got a set of golf clubs in there."
What I love about the armchair section is obviously it's Ronnie Corbett's time to be a comedian again, a stand-up comedian again, or sit down obviously. And but what I wonder how much, because there's a lot of stuttering around and deviating from the joke and all that sort of thing. I wonder how much of that was scripted, and because it's credited to Spike Mullins on his own, it's not credited to anyone else. So I wonder if, in the same way that when Eric Sykes used to write for Frankie Howerd, he used to actually write in all the ooh, ah, no, ooh, stop it, and all that sort of thing. I wonder how much of that was a scripted performance of every bit of off-road he did. It's I reckon maybe even all of it, just to make that sketch and to make it look natural. But there you go. This next sketch is another genius piece of work by Gerald Wiley, and it's called "You're Welcome, My Lord," and it's the butler, I think.
Where's the food, my dear? We seem to have been waiting an extraordinary amount of time. Honestly, this new butler is damned erratic. Wait for hours, and all the food seems to come at once. He's damned impudent to boot as well. So
Oh, do you think so, dear? He's always very polite to me.
he may be to you, but he's damned impudent to me, dear.
Your game, milady?
I say, Blenkinsop, will you hurry along with my roast pork, there's a good soul, and make sure it's a nice fatty piece, will you? See that? Damn well ignoring me.
Don't make such a fuss. He's very efficient.
Maybe to you, dear, to me he's damned impudent.
You're fat, my lord.
See what I mean, dear? I shall have to sack him.
Steady on. We've enough servant trouble as it is. The handyman about to leave us, and the plumbing's in a terrible state.
Reminds me, dear, I must talk to you about the lavatories. They've all gone so tall.
You're sweet, my lady.
Thank you, Blenkinsop.
You're nuts, my lord.
Cheeky swine. How am I supposed to open these?
You're crackers, my lord.
Ed does it, dear. Staff shortage or no staff shortage, he goes.
Well, you know best, dear. What were you saying about the lavatories?
They're broken, dear. Out of order. Up the spout, down the drain.
What? And we've sacked the handyman? How are we going to manage?
You're pale, my lady. You're potty, my lord.
Absolutely brilliant. I hope would be good if they could do a compilation of just sketches that were written as Gerald Wiley sketches, because that would be one of the funniest things that you ever saw on television, I believe. That's almost the end of this. I'm also interested in the fact that although they worked together for so long, they weren't ever recognised as a double act. By intention, I don't mean weren't recognised, I mean they didn't portray themselves that way. This just happened to be a project that they worked on, and in between series would do other things, which is very unusual. I don't think you ever saw another double act doing that. I know now Bobby Ball does a lot of acting work and things like that, but I think if you saw Eric Morecambe or Ernie Wise in a program without the other one, it would be jarring. Or if you saw, even now, if you saw Ant without Dec or Dec without Ant, it just would not sit right. But to have two people like this who were kind of regarded as a comedy double act to do other things as well, such as, you know, like I said, Porridge, Open All Hours, 7 of 1, Sorry as well, and game show appearances and stand up and all the rest of it, and as separate entities. It's very unusual in a double act. I don't think there's many double acts that do that now. Maybe nowadays, in the modern times, people like David Baddiel and Rob Newman were two comedians who worked together, and weren't a double act, and Stuart Lee and Richard Herring maybe. But in those days, you were sort of joined at the hip, and the two Ronnies weren't. And I think that says a lot about them. When they did get together, it all just seemed so natural. And that is almost it. We're going to go into the closing news.
Well, that's all for this week. Next week we'll meet a man who crossed a feather with a lady contortionist and got a girl who could tickle her own fancy. And we'll talk to an interior decorator who crossed an elephant with an Axminster rug and got a big thick pile on his carpet. But now it's good night from me, and it's good night from him. Good night.
And there you have it. The Two Ronnies. Brilliant stuff. I'm going to play this again. No, I won't. I'll play it once I've said goodbye to YouTube. Alright, that was The Two Ronnies Volume 2. Me and Him, a compilation of their TV. This album came out in 1977, so by this time the bulk of their work was already out there as well. So I can't think of any classic stuff that happened in the 80s, or I'm sure there is. They every episode of The Two Ronnies as well is in existence, which is kind of refreshing, especially given the BBC's propensity to record over things. A lot of Frost Report stuff isn't there, but I'm sure the one thing that everybody will have seen is the Class sketch that they did with John Cleese. Can't play that yet. Can't play that yet. So yeah, that was it. Next week, Faulty Towers. One of the Faulty Towers albums, not the one that's been in the news lately. I will either play Mrs. Richards, which is the one with Joan Sanderson, who is deaf and she complains about the hotel view and things like that, or The Hotel Inspectors, which has Bernard Cribbins in as a guest who gets mistaken for a hotel inspector. So one of those will be played next week. In the meantime, thank you for watching this. If you've enjoyed the Two Ronnies, please do tell us. I'll do this live every Sunday from 4 o'clock, but it is also available on YouTube straight after, or on Monday at least, depends when I've edited it and stuff. There are things I can't play on the YouTube version, which is why, YouTubers, I'm going to say goodbye to you now. So please do follow me on the social media sites in the video description: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and follow me on Twitch, and subscribe to this YouTube channel as well. I'm all over it. And if you can, make a donation using the PayPal link as well, also in the video description. Thank you for watching. I will see you next week.